welcome back to Arispy Land. If you're new here, I am Chelsea, family of 7, soon to be 8. I filmed a lot of videos today, so I feel like I keep saying that. Anyway, today I'm going to talk to you guys about Liam's birth story. So I asked a couple weeks ago what y'all wanted to see first. Baby name reveal, what was the other one? Pregnancy update, and Liam's birth story. And at first they were kind of even, and then baby name reveal took the cake for sure. So got that filmed for you guys. Then the pregnancy update. So Liam's birth vlog had a good number of votes. So I thought I'm going to go ahead and do it. At the time I thought I'm going to have this filmed in time for his birthday. But now his birthday has been, 2.5, 3 weeks ago. So anyway, he just turned 9. He was our first son. We're just now expecting our second son. So yeah, they'll have lots of sisters, won't they? Lots of little girls here. But anyway, I've talked a little bit before about how we did certain things to try to conceive a son. And it worked, I guess, or it was just happy coincidence that he was a boy. I'm not sure. Because I was kind of thinking, well, this one might be a girl, because the one I'm pregnant with now, because we didn't try anything special like we do with Liam, and we obviously make good girls, but he's a boy too. So maybe it was coincidence and had nothing to do with the things that we tried to make a boy. And you can Google that. There's so many things. We decided to have Liam when our second daughter, what was she? She wasn't quite 2 yet. I think she was like 18, 19 months. Really wanted a little boy. At the time I had an IUD, so we had that removed to have Liam. I do not recommend IUDs at all, by the way. Had a horrible experience, but had that removed to conceive Liam, and conceived him the month it was removed. So my first ovulation, we conceived Liam. I tracked that very well, like ovulating, the times we tried, the dates I would take pregnancy tests. I tracked all of it really well. And so me and my midwife kind of had separate due dates. That hers was a week off. So to me I had Liam at 39 weeks, and to her I had him at 40 weeks. And I know it doesn't really matter because it's a guess date, but when you're pregnant, that week matters to you, you know what I mean? So anyway, just thought I'd throw that in there. So anyway, and actually Liam's finding out I was pregnant was a little weird, and maybe her date was right because of this. Because I knew the exact days that we tried, and so the date I should have got a positive, I wasn't. I was getting negatives, but I got negatives, and I was, my period had come and gone by a good almost 2 weeks before I got, like it didn't come, I mean, you know what I mean, the date where it should have came and went by about 2 weeks before I got a positive. So I was like super upset, because I was like, man, we tried, but I know it's just the first month. So maybe it didn't, but I knew that we only tried a few days of that month, because I wanted it to be a boy. So you had to try certain days, how it corresponds with the day you actually ovulate and everything. So I think there was like 3 times, like, so for 3 days, multiple times we tried. So that's why I was really sure of the conceiving date. So I was confused when those pregnancy tests were taking so long. So I'm not sure if that means that the midwife's date was right and mine was wrong, or what. So for the midwife, he was due January 27th, and I guess that means for me he was due January 20th. He was born January 28th, by the way. So my pregnancy with Liam was probably my easiest, next to Aria's. Aria's was also really easy. Funny enough, they weighed the same, and in my head we're born the same week. So both 39 weeks to me. And they both weighed the same, so it's kind of funny. Their pregnancies were kind of similar. That's weird now that I think about it. They're also my only 2 babies with brown eyes, although Liam's are kind of hazelish. There's some green in there. But yeah, so that's interesting, and they both favor Aaron a whole lot. I don't know, I just kind of put all that together just now, so that's fun. But my pregnancy with him was pretty easy. I would get sick for a few hours in the evening. That was it. I had a lot of breast pain. And I was really sleepy a lot with him, kind of like I am with this boy. I'm more sleepy. But nothing too out of the norm. And the end of my pregnancy with him was probably the most boring. I didn't have scares like, oh, I think I'm in labor, or oh, I think my water might have be leaking, or oh, anything like that. it was just very easy. It was easy going labor. And so I know the day I was in my head due with him, out shopping around, and it was fun. People would stop and be like, oh, when are you due? And I was like, today. They were like, oh my gosh, because big old belly, I say I'm due today. It was fun. I was out shopping with my mom and grandma, and I remember thinking that was so funny because people would look at you like, wow, why are you here shopping? And I'm like, because you gotta walk to get the baby out. And if you're walking, you might as well be shopping. Anyway, so a week after I thought was my due date, I go to the doctor. So this is January 27th. I go to see my midwife, not my doctor. I go to see her, and I was telling her that I felt like I was having a few contractions, but nothing super consistent. So they went ahead and they took my blood pressure, and it was kind of high, not high enough where it was like super bad. It was just a little elevated. I don't even remember. I think it was like the bottom number was probably in the 90s and the top number was probably like 140. And to her, that's kind of like start watching it when it hits that. So I've always gone by that. Anything 145 over 90, you know, to watch. And so they hooked me up to like the stress test machine there at the appointment, just because I was having some contractions. To her, I was basically 40 weeks. And I know you can go way past that. And I think that if everything's going good, by all means do. Every pregnancy, I learn more and do better, right? So, but to her, I'm 40 weeks, so I'm thinking I'm done. To me, I'm 41 weeks and way done. And I probably was just 40. Anyway, my blood pressure was elevated, and when they did my stress test, the baby's heart rate was good. There was nothing wrong with it, but it was showing I was having contractions. Not super consistent, but close enough together. And here's the thing. I live about 40 minutes away from the hospital, and we know from my past labors, I go from a 4 to done very quickly. Okay, and I was a 3 when she checked me, having contractions. My blood pressure's up. We also knew that 2 days from then, our state was expecting a snowstorm. And it did have its snowstorm. Boy, howdy, it had its snowstorm. It was bad. It was like one of the worst we've had in a long time. So we kind of put all this together, and we're like, okay, you're full term, 40 weeks. You are having elevated blood pressure. You are having contractions. You are a 3, like you seem like you're going into labor. I'm gonna end up sending you home, and you're either gonna come right back, or you're gonna go into labor during the snowstorm and possibly not be able to get out even to the hospital that's close to you, because I do have one very close to me. I just choose not to go to it. So we just decided to induce. And I know there's lots of controversy over inducing. I do know where I'm at now. It would take a lot to get me to induce versus then where it would take a little to get me to induce. No shame, no judgment if you have been induced. I've been induced 3 times for different reasons. Some I feel were very valid. Some I feel I could have not been. So with Liam's, it's iffy. I don't know how I feel about his induction because I'm not a big advocate for it now, whereas before I didn't think it was a big deal. But you know, I probably would have ended up going into labor with him in a snowstorm and been stuck at home. And whereas I'm having a home birth this time, I don't know if I would have handled one well at that time. And that's things to consider. So she said, you know, I think we need to induce in the morning. So she said, we'll just keep a watch on you tonight and we'll induce you in the morning. I did have group B strep with Liam, which is another thing I'm more educated on now too, but at the time I consented to antibiotics. I know different ways to go around this now, but anyway, you know better, you do better. That's my big mantra for life and motherhood. Always be learning so you can know better, so you can do better. Anywho, so my mom, and I think my grandma even, and my 2 little girls at the time were with me at this appointment. So they say, you know, we're gonna go ahead and send you over to the hospital, get you checked in, you can spend the night, and we'll start your induction in the morning, but this way we can keep an eye on your blood pressure and your contractions, instead of having you drive back to Shawnee, where you might be coming back tonight. So they stayed with me until my husband came, and he brought my bag and the baby's bag. He brought some movies for us to watch, just things for us to do, because we knew we would be spending the evening and the night in the hospital, but not in labor, so kind of boring. And then my mom and grandma took Melissa and Natalie home with them for the night. They were back early the next morning. So, you know, me and Aaron, I was telling him today I was gonna film this, and how Liam's birth really was not that eventful. It was just, it's because it was an easy pregnancy and an easy-ish birth. And I was asking him, did we watch those movies that you brought? And neither one of us can remember if we watched the movies he brought. I feel like what happened was we couldn't decide on a movie, so we talked about it for a long time and ended up going to bed. I feel like I have this memory, and it sounds a lot like us. That's what we do on most weekends. We talk about what to watch for a very long time and then we go to bed. So, I think that's what happened. I remember it was a very bad night. My blood pressure stayed about the same. It didn't go down a lot, but if I'm at doctor's, my blood pressure is not the best. It did not go down, but it did not go up. So it stayed about the same. My contractions stayed about the same. I was having them sporadically, not super strong, but they were there. They weren't just Braxton Hicks, all that stuff. But I just had a hard night sleeping. It was a horrible bed. You're not comfortable at the end of pregnancy anyway. You can hear all the beeping and the doctors outside. It was not a good night. Plus, I knew in the morning I was going to go into labor, and that next day I was going to meet my baby. So I was super excited and I just couldn't sleep. So they came in the next morning, and I think they were supposed to start my induction at like 5:30 or 6, but I don't think they did until between 7 and 8. I think is what it was. It was a little after 7 because we were thinking, come on, get on the ball. So my mom and grandma came back up, or at least I know I have trouble remembering Liam's birth for some reason. I don't know why. I know Aaron was there. My 2 little girls were there. My mom was there. My grandma was there. Both my brothers were there. And I think maybe that's it. I don't remember if my dad was there or not. And my mother-in-law was sick, so she couldn't come. So sad. But she was sick, and we're not going to give it to the new baby. So she wasn't there. But anyway, so they started my induction, and I had dilated a little bit more. Like, I had effaced and softened more. So I do think I was in the early stages of labor on my own. So what they did was they just gave me like a pinch of that Pitocin. Not very much, which I've been induced 2 other times. It does not take very much Pitocin. My body is like off and gone, and they kind of just taper it until it's gone. So with him, they gave me a little bit and then they tapered it, and I stayed in labor by myself the rest of the time. Now I did have antibiotics, so I still had my IV. But yeah, so they started it, and I remember I was already in bed when they started it. And I'm not normally a person who lays in bed a lot during labor, but I was already in bed, so I stayed in the bed for a long while, and I don't normally do that. And I think that was probably bad because the pain was starting to get stronger and I wasn't moving to cope with it very well. So finally I realized, like, oh, I need to get out of this bed now. And I also realized I still had my bra on, and I don't labor with a bra on, that when baby's born I can be free so baby can latch on and get skin to skin. And so the only way to get it off because of my IV was to have it hanging on the IV like stand. So my whole labor I got to walk around with an IV stand with my leopard print bra right there with me and in all the pictures. So there's a funny little embarrassing tidbit for you. But so I finally did. I got up and I just kind of did my swaying and, you know, leaning over on the bed, the ball, and I thought I'll try the water. I did not care for the water too much when I was in labor with Melissa. Wasn't my favorite. Natalie I did not get the chance to because I went from 4 to done in like 5 seconds. But with Liam I thought, sure, you know, I'll try it again. Got in there, and I got in there because I got in there around 4, okay? And I get in there and I'm in there for not even an hour. I'd say 30-45 minutes, and I'm just not comfortable. I don't like it. You have to keep the hospital gown on. I had wires on my arm. I didn't want to be still. And in the tub you have to be still, right? And I just could not take it anymore. I was like, I do not want to be still. Get me out of this tub. And I was shaking because I was going through transition. And like we do with me, don't know I'm going to be going through that. Now I know. If I'm a 4, I'm basically done. Just back up and wait a second. But at the time, we thought maybe that was a fluke with Natalie, because I did not do that with my first, with Melissa. I went from a 4 to a 5 to a 6. So we thought it was a fluke with Natalie. It's happened every time since then. So I'm shaking and I'm cold because the gown, and it's winter and it's wet, and I'm like, get it off of me. And when I stand up, I realize, I'm like, oh y'all, oh my, this baby is coming. Well, you don't know Natalie's birth story yet, so I won't spoil it, but we felt the need to get to the bed and not stay in the bathroom. So my midwife was like, he's not crowning yet. Let's wide gate wobble to the bed. So I did. I wide gate wobble to the bed. And see, his birth story is fast, isn't it? Never realized how fast it was, but it went this fast. There's not much going on here. So I get to the bed and I don't think I can get on it. I stand there and I'm like, no, can't get on this bed, can't move. And I was just, my legs were shaking, my legs were hurting. The pain from like my hips down, I think just from how quick it happens. I think your hips and your legs and all that hurt more because it's rapid, you know? And so people kind of helped me onto the bed. And my biggest regret with Liam's birth is that because of how quick we were trying to get me onto the bed, I don't think anyone was paying attention to my position. So they kind of plopped me on the bed, and I have given birth different ways to all my babies. But the four of them were born on a bed. But the ones where I was laying, because not all of them was I on my back on the bed, Ari's I was on all four, I'm propped up. So like my back is like up. So I'm kind of sitting as much as you can while giving birth on the bed. With Liam's, they just had to try to get me on the bed, and my bed was like flat. So I was like flat, 100% flat on my back. And I don't know why the nurses or the midwife or anyone, I could kind of see where Aaron and my mom didn't notice. They're so focused on me. But I would think someone would notice. But anyway, so I'm flat and I don't think about it either. I know this feels hard to push and weird, but I can't think about it. So I'm pushing then because, I mean, they get me on the bed and they look and they're like, yeah, he's right there. And he was not any bigger than Aria. He was 7 pounds, 13 ounces, 21 inches long. So he's not huge. He felt like the biggest baby in the whole wide world. And I remember saying, come on, baby. Come on, baby. And like in between my push, like I would push and then, oh, come on, baby. And I mean, I pushed like 4 times, maybe 5 times, but it felt so hard to do. It almost felt like the urge had left. And I think it was because I laid flat on my back, because when I was up from out of the bath, the second I stood up till I laid back down on the bed, I felt the biggest urge to push. Like, I wish I would have just stayed in the bathroom, because I've done that before and it works okay. But no, I go lay flat on my back, and I think gravity-wise took that pressure off. And so looking back, but you know, when you're in labor, you're not thinking right. But I wish I could have come to mind and said, guys, I don't feel the urge to push laying down. I need someone to sit me up. Or I wish someone else would have said that, because I do feel like, and nothing bad happened. I've never torn or had any issues in labor, in childbirth. I've never had any complications down there in that way. So he came out okay. But yeah, so he felt extremely hard to push out, and they do. I feel like babies, even kind of propped up, but where you're in a bed kind of laying, they feel harder than the ones I've had in other positions. But he felt really hard. So it took a few pushes and he did come out. I do remember he cried a whole lot for a long time, more than any of my other babies. Aria they had that kind of in common. My other babies were more quiet and calm. And he just, he let it out. He was crying, but he was healthy and happy and, you know, pink and all those things. I will say I had tried, and again, know better, do better. I would never do this again. I had been trying, I don't remember how many, like just a few days before he was born, to self-induce with evening primrose oil. I've never used it any other time than this. I think it was 3 or 4 times, and you can insert that vaginally in a pill form, like a soft gel. I've read since then that this can cause hemorrhaging in some women. Yeah. So after he was born, because remember they had turned off my Pitocin, and so after he was born, I wouldn't stop bleeding. I did not have to have a transfusion, but my midwife was like, this is a lot, you know, and they would rub my belly, and it was just, it was coming. And so they turned back up my Pitocin pretty high, because I remember thinking, oh, I'm in labor again, this hurts. It was just kind of like when the baby's nurse. after labor, and it makes those contractions come, but way stronger because the Pitocin was just like bam, 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 contraction, contraction, contraction. Oh, it was hard, but it stopped the bleeding. They lowered it and then turned it off, and then everything was fine after that. And he was healthy, and like I said, 7 pounds, 13 ounces, 21 inches long. And I remember with both my girls, Melissa and Natalie, I couldn't wait to put on their first outfit. Like, I was just so excited after they were born to get those clothes on them, because I don't know, I was super excited. But I remember with Liam, I just laid him, like, you know, after we had our skin to skin and our feeding, and then I got up and got cleaned up, and he went over and got weighed and stuff. I remember I sat up on the bed and just laid him on the bed. He had his little hat on, but I think I ended up even taking that off, and his little diaper and his little blanket was around him, but just naked other than his diaper, and just like awed at him, you know, just stared at him for the longest time. And oh, it makes me almost want to cry thinking that I get to do that again, because it's just so amazing that this little person, I mean, I made that. Me and my husband made that, and the whole miracle of life, and at the fact that our bodies can form these beings that are little people, like perfect little people. And I remember staring at him for the longest time, and Melissa, who was like 4, she had just turned 4 a couple months ago, would come over and just stroke him like this. And Natalie stared at him like from a chair across the room. She was like, I don't know what that is. But she would just do this, and me and Aaron would just sit on the bed and stare at him. And we did that for a long time. We just stared at him, and he was just eyes closed, because he had been awake for a while screaming and then nursing and just asleep. And I just thought he was so precious and adorable. Just his skin. Didn't need any clothes on him. I eventually got him dressed. It was a little chilly, you know. But, and then I remember Natalie was my little baby at the time, you know. She's, oh, had she turned 2? Yeah. She had turned 2, but barely. And I went over, I got up with him, and there was a rocking chair like right across the bed from me. So I go to the rocking chair, and it's a pretty good sized rocking chair. So I have me, and I'm holding Liam, and Natalie is sitting right next to me. And I'm rocking Liam and talking to Natalie, and she falls asleep on my arm, and it just like melted my heart, because I got to be, and Melissa was standing right here talking to me, and Aaron was standing behind me, you know, kind of rubbing my shoulder. And it was like the most complete feeling. And just happy that I got, because you know, you always have a little bit of emotions of, this was my baby, you know, Natalie, and now this is the baby. And it felt so good, because I knew she was about to go home with my mom and be her first night. No, it was her second night away from me. So it felt really good to snuggle with her and have Melissa right there, and the baby and Aaron, and it was really nice. So that was lovely. Let's see, we spent the night again, because that was our first night with Liam. We went home the next day. There was no complications. My blood pressure was fine. He was perfectly healthy. So we go home the next day, and it's 70 in true Oklahoma fashion. Because Oklahoma can go from 70 to freezing. So it was 70. We're driving home. Our car even starts like overheating, because we're stuck in standstill traffic, and it's hot, and I don't know. It wasn't that good of a car to begin with. But we got home. It was a beautiful day. We just went inside. Nothing really eventful happened. The little girls took turns holding him. We rested. All those good things. Woke up the next morning to a terrible snowstorm. I mean, it's considered one of like the worst in Oklahoma history. Like, it's pretty bad. And it was so cold. And we lived in this little 2-bedroom rent house. Like, battery's dying. Okay, so we lived in this little 2-story rent house. And it just had like one of those really long wall heaters, like went almost from ceiling to floor heater, but it was the only heater in the whole house. In Oklahoma, this is not that big of a deal, and there's little plug-in heaters you can use, but it was bitterly cold. It's also not the best insulated house. But you know, it did the job, but it was bitterly cold, and we had 2 little girls, and me fresh postpartum, and a newborn baby. So what we did was we pulled out our king-size bed, our king-size bed plus a twin bed, and put it in front of those heaters in the living room. That's where the heater was, in front of that heater in the living room, and we all slept out there for almost the full first 2 weeks that Liam was born, because that's how long the snow and the ice and everything was still out, and that it was freezing. And Aaron would take the little girls out to play in the snow, but we couldn't really drive anywhere. Or go anywhere. So for the first 2 weeks, unless you had seen Liam in the hospital, you didn't see Liam because you couldn't get out and drive. Luckily we had food. I don't know, I don't remember. I must have known an ice storm was coming beforehand and prepped. I don't know, but I know we had plenty of food, so that was good. At the end of like the 2-ish week mark, we did start running low, and I remember Aaron got out and it was still kind of icy, and he got all the way to Walmart and he hadn't taken the card, like the debit card. So he had to come all the way back home, and Walmart was like a madhouse because everyone was just getting more stuff. And anyway, so it might have turned out well that we went ahead and induced Liam, because he might have ended up being born at home or being born at the hospital here in town that I'm not a huge fan of. So maybe it was a good thing, but yeah, that is the story. And when he was born, he had those little stork bite things on him. My only baby to have those so far. But yeah, just a healthy, happy boy. I remember he got chunky super fast. Big mama's boy. Anyway, that's the story of Liam's pretty simple pregnancy. And I guess his labor was a little more eventful than I remembered it being. Very quick. So I don't mind going from 4 to done very fast, but I would have liked to be set up. Anyway, now he is 9 and he's super excited to have a little brother coming. And yeah, that's that. All right, I'm gonna let you guys go. I'd love to hear any birth stories you have down in the comments, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye, y'all.